The importance of economic development in eastern Kentucky taking center stage today, what local leaders are doing to bring businesses to the area. Plus, the parents of a Michigan school shooter learned just how long they'll be spending in prison.
Plus, rain chances continue for much of this week before a drier start to this weekend. Those details coming up as Mountain News First at 4 continues.
Mountain News First at 4 continues.
Governor Andy Beshear is in eastern Kentucky this afternoon making two stops. Earlier, he was in Floyd County in the city of Wayland, along with members of the Appalachian Service Project to celebrate 11 new high ground homes for families impacted by the 2022 flood. Governor Beshear says it's projects like these that speak to the promise of building back.
We made the promise to rebuild, and I know it took faith for people to believe it because it was going to take time. But you look up and down this road and you see real progress. It's really incredible. So I'm really grateful.
The houses are still under construction and no keys have been distributed yet, but Governor Beshear says they are anticipating families moving in this summer. Along with being in Floyd County, the governor went on to Pike County for the ribbon cutting of a new senior center. We'll have much more about Governor Beshear's visit to eastern Kentucky tonight at 6 and 11. The Southeast Kentucky Chamber of Commerce hosted a lunch and learn today, bringing One East Kentucky to the table to discuss ongoing developments. One East Kentucky President and CEO Colby Kirk spoke to attendees about the importance of economic development, saying the infrastructure is being planted and in many places already in place to create more opportunity for business growth. He says his organization is just the boots on the ground, working with a network of local leaders, taking the information to the interested investors, hoping to see the region booming with new and expanding industry.
We're working full-time to promote our region from a workforce, the quality of life standpoint, but also the fact that we have quality industrial sites here that are ready to create jobs in eastern Kentucky.
The Lunch and Learn invited those in attendance to continue the conversation, hoping to see communities working to push for more state incentives for businesses to plant their operations in the region.
Well, the weather is not ideal on this Tuesday. We are overcast, also soggy in some areas. Let's go to First Alert Pinpoint Doppler. And some good news today, no severe storms, no heavy rainfall issues, but we are tracking some more hit or miss light showers as we go into this afternoon. Also this evening, zooming into the I-64 corridor, also the Mountain Parkway from Powell County pushing into Wolfe County, and same story for our friends in Morgan County, also moving into Magoffin and Johnson counties and into the Big Sandy Valley. Some more light showers for Floyd County, also moving into Pike County and into our Virginia and West Virginia counties at this hour. Those temperatures a little bit below average. We should be in the middle to upper 60s. Most of us today in the upper 50s to lower 60s, up to 63 in Harlan, also in Manchester, 57 for Jackson, 58 for Pikeville, also in Irvin at this hour. And some more wet weather is on the way. Notice as we zoom out, we are tracking some severe weather on this Tuesday for our friends in Texas, also Louisiana. Now, we have no severe weather issues in the short term, but that may change as we go into your Thursday. This is the latest update from the Storm Prediction Center on Thursday. Notice we have a level 2 slight risk of severe weather from Somerset to Hazard to Pikeville and back to the north for everyone else. A level 1 marginal risk of severe weather. More details on that storm threat plus a better weekend coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
Cameron, thank you. The Arizona Supreme Court says the state must adhere to a 123-year-old law barring all abortions except in cases of saving the mother's life. The legislation from 1864 also carries a prison sentence of 2 to 5 years for abortion providers. In the case in question, Arizona versus Mays, abortion rights opponents claim the state should revert to the ban. Meanwhile, advocates asked the court to affirm a 2022 law allowing abortions up to 15 weeks into pregnancy. The court's decision is currently stayed for 14 days. Former President Donald Trump is taking heat from Democrats and Republicans today. It's over a campaign video where the presumptive GOP nominee said each state should decide its own abortion laws. CBS's Ed O'Keefe has more on this key issue in the upcoming election.
Former President Donald Trump still won't say whether he supports a proposed national abortion ban. Instead,
the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law.
That means he backs the 14 states that have passed near total bans on access to abortion procedures since Roe v. Wade was struck down, and others, like his home state of Florida, that have signed 6-week bans into law. On Monday, former Vice President Mike Pence called Trump's failure to endorse a national ban a slap in the face to the millions of pro-life Americans who voted for him in 2016 and 2020. Marjorie Dannenfelser is president of a leading anti-abortion group.
I was surprised and disappointed in the context of the great opportunity that he has made real in this country.
Trump campaigned on a promise to nominate conservative Supreme Court justices who would overturn Roe, something he now boasts about.
I was proudly the person responsible.
Dannenfelser spoke with Trump by phone Monday and says he could still change his mind.
I still see an open door for signing a 15-week bill if it came to him.
President Biden's trying to make that exact same point.
If MAGA Republicans put a federal ban on his desk, he'd sign it.
Within hours of Trump's announcement, the Biden campaign released this new ad about a Texas woman denied abortion services after a miscarriage. She says she now may not be able to get pregnant again. Ed O'Keefe, CBS News, the White House.
The parents of Michigan high school shooter Ethan Crumbley have each been sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison for manslaughter. Jennifer and James Crumbley were found guilty of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in separate trials earlier this year. A judge sentenced James Crumbley to 15 years behind bars. His wife Jennifer received a 10-year sentence. We'll hear more from today's sentencing ahead at 5:30. 2 weeks after the deadly collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, a delegation from Maryland met with lawmakers on Capitol Hill, hoping to speed up aid to the region. Maryland Governor Wes Moore, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and leaders from the state's congressional delegation are calling on lawmakers from both sides to support an aid and recovery package. President Biden, who surveyed the devastation last week, has promised the federal government will pay for the entire cost of reconstructing the Key Bridge.
Tragedy knows no partisanship. This wasn't a Republican tragedy, it wasn't a Democrat tragedy, and the solution won't be a partisan solution, it'll be a bipartisan solution.
6 construction workers who were working on the bridge when it was struck by the cargo ship died. Crews continue the massive salvage effort to clear the wreckage and fully open the Port of Baltimore, with many businesses impacted by its closing. Norfolk Southern has reached a $600 million settlement that would resolve all class action lawsuits within 20 miles of its East Palestine, Ohio derailment. The settlement is intended to offset costs related to the February 2023 accident that sent a plume of toxic smoke into the air and displaced many people. More than 1 million pounds of hazardous chemicals were spilled into the soil, water, and air. Norfolk Southern has not admitted to any liability or wrongdoing. The settlement still needs to be approved by a court. The EPA is issuing new rules to protect people living in areas near chemical manufacturers. More than 100,000 Americans live within 6 miles of factories that release toxic chemicals, increasing their risk of getting cancer. One new rule cuts the amount of hazardous pollutants factories are allowed to release. Real-time air monitoring will also be required at the perimeter of the company properties. That will alert companies when hazardous air pollutants are leaking from their plants. Coming up on First at 4, with the tax deadline looming, some may look for last-minute tax tips on social media, but you may not always get the best advice. We'll take a look at some of the red flags.
Plus, keep the umbrella close as rain chances are set to linger for much of this week. Your forecast after this break.